Hey everybody! So today we're going to be talking about the Asteroid Hylonome. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm kind of shit at pronouncing things, but the Asteroid Hylonome. The asteroid number is 10370, and I will be reading from like some notes that I've taken on my iPad so that I don't fuck any of this up. And also, there will be a blog post that will go along with this video. It'll be linked to the description box below. And the blog post might go into some things that the video doesn't, and vice versa. I don't know. So maybe check them both out regardless. Before I get started with the video though, I want to say thank you to everybody who purchased the star cards. They are sold out. The first printing is fucking gone. So thank you to everybody who did support mine and Natalie's venture with the star cards. We hope that you love them. And there will, like I said before, there will be a second printing. I'm just not sure exactly when that will be. It will be sometime soon, but not totally sure when, but I will let you all know when they are available again. And also I wanted to throw out my course on past lives and present life mission. That's past life, present life mission course. That's what I called it. I should have thought of something more creative, but whatever, that gets the point across. The course deals with the nodal axis, aspects to the nodes, Pluto and the Pluto polarity point, the synthesis of all of this. The draconic chart will also be involved in like the fifth class in the course, and then the synthesis with that. So it covers a whole bunch of ground in 6 weeks, starts October 2nd. I will also put a link where you can check this out if you're interested in it. I am really fucking super stoked about this class because these kinds of readings, like the karmic and past life readings, and like where the soul wanted to go this time around, have a massive part of my heart astrologically. So I'm really fucking stoked about it. And if you have any questions beyond just checking out the course on my website, by all means, feel free to email me at saturnseason@gmail.com. Anyway, wanted to get that out of the way, those things out of the way first. But Asteroid Hylonome. Recently, now I have known about Hylonome for a long time. She was a female centaur in mythology. She was written about in Metamorphoses, in the poem, in the long ass poem, Metamorphoses. And she is written about alongside her partner, Cyllarus. I think that's how it's pronounced. I might be pronouncing that wrong too. He has an asteroid as well. I'm not really going to talk about him though, like in terms of how to read him. This is really more about her. Though I don't know what his asteroid number is off the top of my head. I will link below or put below in the description box what his asteroid number is, along with Hylonome's 10370 number. And another asteroid that I'm going to throw out here that I think could be read alongside Hylonome. There's not a whole lot about her mythology, and what is there within her mythology is kind of depressing. It's really kind of sad. She tends to deal with things like grief and excessive grief. She also has ties to suicide because of her mythology, and can be pretty prominent in the charts of people who have committed suicide by transit, like the transits to Hylonome in their natal chart, or transiting Hylonome to things in their natal chart. It does. And I actually looked into this. I've in the past couple of years, I've had some people close to me commit suicide, and I was looking at their charts and looking at where Hylonome was and where it was transiting in their charts. And it's really interesting that in both of these charts, I'm not going to show them for privacy reasons, because they're not here to ask, and I don't know that they would want their shit blasted everywhere, but it is interesting that transiting Hylonome was conjuncting some important things. What was in their chart when they passed, when they decided to depart the earth. So I did think that was interesting. But she deals with excessive grief, among other things. Now, I don't claim to be a mythology expert at all. I never have, but I do think that it's important to look at the mythology that is known about these different, asteroids or whatever you're looking at, to kind of get an idea as to how to read a particular asteroid or whatever. So we're going to go into the mythology a little bit, because there are other ways that I think that you can read her rather than just excessive grief. I do think that she can represent other things. Yeah, so, okay. And it's also, you know, it's also interesting. The past couple of months, I felt very called to work with her and, or to dive into her more than just knowing that she represents excessive grief. And the more that I go into her mythology, the more I'm like, it's like right on time that I would want to explore this particular asteroid, this centaur, this female centaur. It's just it's just interesting that, you know, she popped really up to me now in a major way. And it's like, I don't know if y'all ever have this happen, but like where things kind of, you find yourself called to either explore things or learn about things. This could be within an astrology or whatever, but it's like they fit so much with whatever it is you're going through at that time, making them right on time into your, you know, frame of reference, you know, like having your sights on it, if you will. Anyway, okay, so in her mythology, in Metamorphoses, and I'm going to use quotes when I'm quoting something from it. Many centaurs would be his mate, Cyllarus, but one gained his heart. This was Hylonome. It's also said that she would do things to like beautify herself for him, such as combing her glossy hair and twined her curls in turn with rosemary and took care to look her best. It is also mentioned that she alone by love and love's sweet words and winning ways held Cyllarus. Okay. So, okay. It seems like it's made a big deal in the mythology without actually saying this is a big fucking deal, but it seems like it's a big deal that he chose her. Nowhere in the mythology do I see it said that she chose him back. I'm not saying that she didn't. She very well could have. I'm not, you know, but it's not mentioned. But it is mentioned that he chose her. That he could have had any of the female centaurs or whatever, but he chose her. And she seemed, there's this chosen one feel to Hylonome. That's not always that not necessarily a negative thing, not necessarily a positive thing. It's just kind of a thing. It does seem like this could go along with her. Along with the, you know, also in the poem, it never mentions that he does anything to try to keep her around, but it does seem like she does things to try to keep him around. Or she does things for him that it doesn't seem like he does for her. Now, again, I don't know if that's true or not. There's not a whole lot within the mythology, but what is there, it mentions about how she takes care to look a certain way, to beautify herself, essentially. But I see him doing fuck all to like keep her. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like it just seems kind of strange that this is what's mentioned. Now, I also realize that, you know, I want to be careful when I say this, because I realize that across both sexes and any gender identification, there is an emphasis on looks. There tends to be an emphasis on what people look like, what you should look like, whatever, what beauty is, what, you know what I mean, whatever. But historically, this emphasis has been placed more on females. It has. It doesn't mean that males aren't impacted by this as well, because they are. I'm not arguing that. But there has been a major influence on females, and females needing to keep themselves a certain way and look a certain way and blah, 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 whatever. So some of this could be like, you know, conditioning in her story. Like they like maybe this is highlighted because this is just kind of what females do, whatever, you know what I mean? And that could be the case. But I do think that Hylonome, because this does seem to be so highlighted in Hylonome's mythology, I do think Hylonome can deal with doing things for your partner and why you do them is kind of the question. Like, do you do them because you feel like you actually want to do them? Because you actually want to do them? Like, do you actually want to beautify yourself for your partner, or whatever else? A whole bunch of other shit could be possible there too. We'll just use that because that's in the mythology. Or do you do it because you think you have to do it to keep them interested or to keep them around? Or because it's been conditioned in you to keep them? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what is the reasoning behind that? Because I feel like at a lower vibration, Hylonome might deal with the conditioning part or the feeling like you have to. And at a higher vibration, Hylonome does things because she wants to do them. Because she just wants to do them for her partner. And I'm not 100% sure exactly where that stands here, but I could see it going either way. Now, in the mythology, a major part of her mythology is she and Cyllarus went to, and I'm going to fuck these names up, went to the wedding of King Pirithous, I might be fucking that up, and Hippodamia. And they went to this wedding, and a bunch of centaurs went to this wedding with them. And one centaur, his name, and I'm going to fuck this name up too, his name was Euritian, I don't know, some drunk fucking centaur who decided, you know, they like to drink and get rowdy. Most of the centaurs did drink and get rowdy. But this one particular rowdy fucking centaur decided to try to fuck the bride, which pissed off the groom. And it started what's called the Centramachy, which was essentially like a slaughter of the centaurs. And a bunch of the centaurs and the Lapiths died. And the Lapiths and the centaurs, they were similar. They were kind of like brother species, if you will. They not the same thing, but similar. Well, I won't go into all that, but similar in nature. Anyway, so there's this big ass battle going on, and Cyllarus ends up getting struck with either a spear or a javelin right here, like where the throat and the chest meet. I'm picturing it like right here. And the wound, from what it sounds like in Metamorphoses, it's not awful. Like when the spear is there in his throat, it's not awful. But when the spear is taken out, right, he starts bleeding out. Which is why they recommend not moving, you know, before you get to a hospital or whatever, not moving anything that's like been, or they tend to recommend that anyway, with things that like you get hit with like that, because it can make the wound worse trying to pull it out. Anyway, so Hylonome is, and it's also not mentioned if Hylonome is the one who pulls it out. It could have been Cyllarus himself, I don't know. But he's laying there, somebody pulls out the spear, and he bleeds out. And she's holding him, and as he's dying, and she decides that she just doesn't want to go on once he's departed. And she ends up killing herself with the same spear or javelin that killed him. And that is where her mythology ends. Now, when I read this mythology, and I've read it, I've read it several times now, as you know, over the past couple months as I've been diving into this, even more than to know more about it than I already did. And every time I get to that part, I'm like, girl, don't you fucking do that. Every time I'm like, girl, don't fucking do that. Like, don't fucking do that. Don't fucking do that. But she ends up dying, and there's this feeling of codependency with her. To me, it feels like codependency. I mean, if like, don't get me wrong, I understand when, losing somebody and being so heartbroken that you don't want to go on, but actually feeling like you can't go on without them does feel a little codependent. Now, I was talking to a friend of mine, to an astrologer friend of mine, that actually had a somewhat different take than I did. But I want to be careful how I say this, because there's no advocating for suicide here, but it was like, the comment was made that she didn't want to play the game anymore. She didn't want to play the game anymore. It was something like that. So she walked away. Of course, by her killing herself, that is a very final way of walking away, if you will. You know what I mean? I'm not at all advocating for anybody to walk away or shed grief that way. Because there are other ways to do that. But there is a sense, you know, Hylonome could deal with shedding grief too, like, because she does deal with excessive grief just in general, but she could deal with shedding grief and walking away. Not necessarily walking away like that, but like, I don't know, not even when somebody dies, but like, you could have a relationship die. You could have like your career kind of start feeling it's dying, or whatever, a whole bunch of different things. And Hylonome might be something that could be worked with when it's the grief from whatever is just too much and you just need to walk away from it and shed it and leave it behind. I think she could function that way in a higher vibration, if you will, at a higher vibration. I think she could go that way. Just shedding grief, walking away from it, and kind of letting it go, or putting it in its place, if you will. Yeah. So here on my notes, I have Hylonome at a higher vibration, because I do think these things can function, you know, like planets. You know, there are higher vibration ways to work with planets, lower vibration ways to work with planets. Same thing is true for asteroids. So for her at a higher vibration, I think of equality in love and partnerships. Doing things for your partner because you actually want to do them, not because you feel like you have to do them because society tells you to do them, or because your partner tells you to do them, or whatever, but because you actually want to do them. Shedding grief and walking away from things that cause you excessive grief. But obviously doing it in a healthy way, you know, would be the way to go there. And also choosing oneself, I think, is a thing that Hylonome can do. You know, like in the mythology, how I mentioned that it seemed like there was emphasis placed on him choosing her. I feel like there can be something that once you like kind of like shed the grief and walk away, you can kind of choose yourself, if that makes sense. I feel like Hylonome can deal with this. Hylonome at a lower vibration, feeling like one needs to be chosen by someone else. Because it does seem to be a thing in her mythology, just being chosen, if you will, by Cyllarus. Excessive grief, and excessive grief that you can't get rid of. Doing things for your partner and not being met halfway, or doing things for your partner because you feel like you have to do them, because they are expected of you, whatever. Codependency, and lack of equality in love and partnerships, and kind of accepting that. And you know, the equality thing is interesting in this case, because Hylonome, you know, in Metamorphoses, it talks about how Hylonome and Cyllarus had, like, they were their love was equal. And I don't know, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It says they roamed around on hills together, but other than that, it seemed like she was doing a fuckload for him. But I don't really, the same thing isn't mentioned back. So I don't know. Maybe it was equal, which is why I'm kind of saying at a higher vibration, it could easily be about love, like equality in love and partnerships. But at a lower vibration, it might not function that way. Because they say that in the mythology, but there's not really any evidence of it. In my opinion, there's not. Also, another thing that I've been pulling with Hylonome is the Asteroid Grieve. That asteroid number is 4451, and the reason for that is because Hylonome deals with excessive grief, and Grieve is an asteroid that deals with grief. So I might look, you know, along with looking at where Hylonome is by sign and house, and also, you know, what it's doing in transit, I might look and see if it happens to make an aspect, any aspect, to the Asteroid Grieve. If it made, say, like an easy aspect, that might show that there is an easier time maybe shedding grief, things like that. If it makes a more challenging aspect, it might show there is a more difficult time shedding grief. I don't know, it's just something to play with. It's something that I've been playing with anyway. And it, from the charts that I've looked at, it kind of does make sense. Now, Grieve won't always make an aspect, may not always make an aspect with Hylonome, but if it does, I would certainly take notice of it. And definitely take notice of Hylonome if she happens to be conjunct a planet in your chart within like a couple of degrees. Definitely look at her then for sure. But yeah, I think this is pretty good. I'm gonna stop here because this one got a little longer. But yeah, I will put where you can find me and the blog post about this and my course and all that good stuff in the description box below. And I will see you all later.